Their club became the richest in the world, but these fans are worried at what it means for Newcastle's soul. CNN. It was Premier League club Newcastle United, the first match of a new era. St James Park was packed to capacity with the expectant fans, and the sounds of a jubilant chant fills the air on the Tyneside on Sunday, October 7th. Following the club's controversial takeover by the Saudi Arabian Public Investment Fund, the move of the northern English city has been nothing but celebratory, and the atmosphere at that particular match was close to delirious. The black and white colors of the club could be seen in every stand, on church and adorning flags, while a giant banner was held up to spell out some of the words from a famous song about the River Tyne that Newcastle proudly sits upon. This is the mighty town built upon a solid ground, and everything they've tried so hard to kill, we will rebuild. The flag read. The banner alludes to the supposed killing of Newcastle United, a perceived death. Many fans of the club have spent the past 14 years grieving over following the acquisition of the club by UK retail boss Mike Ashley, who has long been accused of disinterest in Newcastle, of not bothering to invest in the club, and of draining the soul out of the Magpies. Ashley's counterpoint would be he once wanted Newcastle to live within its means. Newcastle United supporters celebrate outside St James Park on October 7th after the sale of the football club to the Saudi-led consortium was confirmed. Yet, amidst the feverish celebrations that took place at St. James Park that day, there was one discordant note. A van drove the justice for Jamal Khashoggi poster around the stadium, a reference to the actual killing of the Saudi journalist and descendant that took place in 2018. The PIF, which has the 80% stake in the club as part of the three-party consortium, is a sovereign wealth fund chaired by Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, the man who a U.S. intelligence report named responsible for approving the operation that led to the murder of Khashoggi. Khashoggi entered the Saudi Arabian consulate in Istanbul on October 2nd, 2018 to pick up a document required in order to marry his fiancée, but once he entered the building, he never left. U.S. intelligence has since concluded that the Crown Prince himself approved the operation that ended in the killing of the journalist. In response to the conclusion drawn by U.S. intelligence, the Saudi Foreign Ministry released a statement saying the country completely rejects the negative, false, and unacceptable assessment in the report pertaining to the kingdom's leadership, and notes that the report contained inaccurate information and conclusions. It also added that Khashoggi's killing was the abhorrent crime and the flagrant violation of the kingdom's laws and values. Before the takeover, Amnesty International UK urges the Premier League to reconsider the decision, and since then it has demanded that the league changes its owners and directors tasked to address human rights issues. Amnesty International Chief Executive Shaka Deshmukh said instead of allowing those implicated in serious human rights violations to work in English football simply because they have deep pockets, we've urged the Premier League to change their owners and directors to address human rights issues. And while the Premier League has said it has received legally binding assurances that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia will not control Newcastle United, there is no denying that the nation's crown prince oversees the PIF. CNN reached out to the PIF for the statement for this story, but its representatives declined to comment. In a press release issued when the takeover was first announced, Asir Al Lumayan, governor of the PIF, said, "We are extremely proud to become the new owners of Newcastle United, one of the most famous clubs in English football. We thank the Newcastle fans for their tremendously loyal support over the years, and we are excited to work together with them." When the news was officially announced, Haiti's Sanjis, the fiance of the late Khashoggi, took to Twitter to call the takeover a shame of embarrassment for Newcastle United, and said that she hoped the fans and players would hold their owners to account. CNN has reached out to the Premier League and PCP Capital Partners, who make a part of the consortium that had taken over the club, for comment, but did not receive the response. In the press release issued with the announcement of the deal, Amanda Stabley, CEO of PCP Capital Partners, said, "This is the long-term investment. We're excited about the future perspective for Newcastle United." Newcastle co-owner Amanda Stabley talks to the media as she leaves the foyer of St. James Park. "We intend to instill a united philosophy across the club, establish a clear purpose, and help provide leadership that will allow the Newcastle United to go on to big achievement over the long term." Since the announcement of the takeover, the Premier League has agreed to meet with Amnesty for talks on revising the owners and directors test currently applied to any individual named as having a key role in controlling a club in the league. Short-lived joy. While jubilation is still sweeping through most of the Newcastle fan base right now, there are some supporters who intend to exactly what Sanjis has called for, holding their new owners accountable. As they struggle to come to terms with the fact that the future of the club is now partly in the hands of the regime, which has been accused of serious human rights abuses. Emma Holbrook has followed the club since she was a child and has been witness to many of Newcastle's lowest moments, including Ashley's Tropilis tenure. She says that while she first felt excited at the prospect of the new direction for the club, that delight soon dissipated when she considered the fact Newcastle would now be tied with the Saudi regime. "My initial response to the takeover was joy," she told the CNN Sport. And then that quickly gave way to uneasy as I realized that we were now essentially owned by the powerful nation state, one accused of sanctioning the murder of the journalist as well as holding an appalling record on LGBTQ plus and women's rights. And that also made me think about what's the dire situation modern football, not just the Newcastle itself, is in, she said. "How have we reached the point where our only choice for owners lies between Mike Ashley, whose company Sport Direct has been accused of abusing workers' rights, and all-powerful entity who are facing numerous allegations of sanctioning human rights abuses? When those accusations of abuse of workers' rights were made in 2016, Ashley told the British lawmakers he was unaware of such practices, but admitted his company has broken the law by failing to pay the national minimum wage to his employees. Everyone wants their club to succeed, added Holbrook. Everyone wants their club to win the biggest prizes in football, but no one wants to question the morality of how they got there. With the PIF acquisition and the injection of wealth into the club, Newcastle appears to be one of the cusps of the golden age, but Holbrook wants the fellow fans to be aware of the potential cost any future success could come with. It feels clear to me that Saudi Arabia has been what Qatar, another nation accused of committing human rights abuses, has done with regards to buying PSG, which has allowed that the state to repackage its global image and to present a new version of itself to the rest of the world, said Holbrook, reflecting on the idea of sport washing. And I don't want Newcastle to become just a tool for a regime in need of the PR refresh. In response to accusations of workers' rights abuses in Qatar, the CEO of Qatar's World Cup, Nasser Carter, told CNN that migrant worker reforms take time and can't happen all all at once. It's a change of culture, it's a change of behavior, he said. We will be lying to ourselves and fooling ourselves if from one year to the next you can make those changes and think that everything going to be solved. On the personal level, Holbrook feels a particular discomfort at the thought of her beloved club now being so closely involved with the homophobic regime. In Saudi Arabia, homosexuality is illegal under the applied Sharia law, and the punishment hands out for same-sex acts and intimacy include whippings, imprisonment, and in some cases the death penalty. The nation is widely regarded as one of the world's most unsafe places for LGBTQ plus people, something which Holbrook finds impossible to ignore. Given that there is now a direct link between Newcastle United and the Kingdom of the Saudi Arabia in the form of Mohammed bin Salman's role in the PIF. It's illegal for people like me to build themselves in Saudi Arabia, Holbrook told CNN, and the crown prince of that nation now essentially oversees the new owners of my club. Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, the chairman of the Saudi Public Investment Fund. To Holbrook, Newcastle's support of its LGBTQ plus fans and of the Rainbow Laces campaign could start to ring hollow under its new ownership, given the ongoing polite and persecution of LGBTQ plus people in Saudi Arabia and the proximity of the club to the crown. The club may be committed to making LGBTQ plus fans welcome in Newcastle, but what about solidarity of LGBTQ plus Saudis? What will the club do to do to support them now that they have such close ties with the crowns that oppresses them? While Holbrooks told she appreciated the fact that Newcastle fans themselves weren't responsible for making such close connections with the Saudi regime. She believes the believes that supporters which have the duty to hold their new owners accountable for human rights abuses. If we're going to be so dedicated to the club on the pitch, then we need to use the same communal energy when it comes to off-pitch concerns too. Turning to grassroots football. Although the takeover of Newcastle by an ultra-wealthy consortium may feel like just another step towards a mini Super League within a Premier League itself in which only the wealthiest clubs, including Manchester City, Chelsea, and others, are able to achieve success. The continuing increase in riches in modern football is actually leading some fans to respond by pouring their time, money, and energy into supporting local grassroots level clubs. Gateshead FC is a club based in the northern English town of Gateshead, which is joined to Newcastle by one of the bridges that ruined their the time. The club plays in the sixth tier of the English football, the National League North, and it usually costs around 15 euro, $20 for a ticket to see them play. In contrast, a ticket to watch Newcastle often costs about 40 euros, 55, and the prices of those tickets is expected to skyrocket should the club reach dizzying heights of success in the coming years, or thanks to its lucrative, lucrative takeover. Rowan Lees is a Newcastle fan who's found himself attending more Gateshead matches than those of his own clubs in recent times. As more and more money pours into the Premier League, Lee has decided he would rather buy tickets to support the local club, who've previously faced the threat of folding, which provides weekly joy and escape for Gateshead residents and plays an essential role in the town's community spirit. I love Newcastle. I love going to Newcastle matches, but I feel like I'm supporting a local town and it people more whenever I go to see Gateway play, especially now. Lee told CNN Sport. When I heard about the takeover, one of the first things I thought was about just how much it would affect ticket prices. I asked myself, could I be locked out of the club I support because I won't be able to afford to go and see them play? I'm wondering if I might find myself only able to attend the Carabao Cup English League Cup matches in the future because everything else will be out of my price range. Lee's questions what it might mean for the club he lives in if fans end up priced out of attending their club's matches every weekend. What happens when an institution of the city no longer serve the people of the city itself? When fans of the city's historic club can't afford to support the team in person. In an ironic way, I actually think that the takeover of Newcastle by extraordinary wealthy backers will turn some fans towards the grassroots football. There are many fans who would rather support a club that they know cares about them too, than feel like affinity with just another eye-wateringly rich owner looking to use the sport washing to their advantage. Apart from feeling concerned over the threat of a disconnect between the club and the fans as a result of its newfound wealth, Leeds, like Holbrook, is also worried about the ethics of Newcastle now being tethered to the state accused of restricting civil liberties. At first, of course, I was excited about the prospect of Newcastle becoming a major player in global football and a major player in the Premier League again, Lees said. Then came the questions over the ownership. It feels like we would become a plaything of the Saudi state, and I don't want that to happen. But as modern football is now so often controlled and overseen by powerful owners, boards, and other entities, Lees feels powerless as a pen. He said he hoped that fans could use the enormity of the club, particularly as Newcastle is historically considered one of the English football's giant, and its huge fan base as some kinds of leverage to hold Saudi Arabia to account. As 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 was seen with the capitulation of the proposed European Super League in the spring, fans are still capable of harnessing their collective power to make a stand against even football's biggest power brokers. Lee thinks if Newcastle fans could organize together to make it clear they do not condone Saudi Arabia's concerning record of human rights abuses, then perhaps wider attention will be placed on the accusations and the international pressure for the nation to face repercussions will intensify. But of course, it may prove difficult to unite Newcastle's fan base in protest against their new owners and their association with the oppression of the Saudi people, while Lees Holbrook and others may feel disillusioned with the takeover. There are many fans who are reluctant to criticize the new owners. At Newcastle's match against Tottenham, the first of the club's new era, some fans even waved the Saudi flag and dressed in a traditional Saudi garb. Newcastle United fan before the match against Tottenham Hotspur on October 17th. As fans, there is not a lot we can do about the human rights stuff. For Lorraine, a supporter of the club, told the Guardian after the Saudi-led buyout of Newcastle was confirmed. We were all wearing clothes born of the sweatshops in countries with human rights issues. The moral compass is always the strange one in times like this. Will disillusionment with the Newcastle takeover inspire fans on the club models? The acquisition of Newcastle by exceedingly wealthy owners is just the latest in the string of similar takeovers over the past 20 years. In 2003, Russian oligarch Roman Abramovich bought Chelsea in what was then the biggest takeover in English football. In 2008, Manchester City was purchased by the Abu Dhabi United Group, owned by Sheikh Mansour of the United Arab Emirates. PSG were bought by Qatar Sports Investment, which subsequently made it one of the world's wealthiest clubs. Ryan Monty is the Newcastle fan who thinks that the PIF takeover is just another indication of just how much modern football has become warped by extreme wealth. He has witnessed Newcastle's decline in recent times as the club has suffered relegation and has languished near the bottom of the Premier League table whenever it has returned. Yet, he is so disillusioned by what the takeover means for football as a whole that he said he would rather be stuck with the club's current team and the misfortunes if it meant the McAfees weren't owned by such a staggeringly rich investment group, and the baggage it comes with. I'm worried about the purchase of Newcastle by Saudi Arabia's PIF, the purchase of Man City by the UAE, and the fact that PSG are also essentially owned by the nation state too, are all part of the opening of Pandora's box, Monty told CNN Sport. Now, where does it stop? It just feels like any teams that weren't supported by these all-powerful countries will fail to achieve any success. Monty is worried about the increasingly uneven playing field of the new Premier League, and while he wants to see Newcastle reach prestigious competitions like the Champions League again. He said he would much rather see the club owned by fans than to see it sign the best players in the world. I'd like to see the Premier League introduce a similar model for club ownership to the one that exists in the German Bundesliga, Monti said. I'd rather see Newcastle owned by the fans than see Messi, Neymar, and Mbappe as our front three. I mean that. Monti is referring to the system in the Bundesliga in which the famous 50 plus 1 rule means that clubs must be majority owned by their fans. By contrast, there is no such model in the Premier League. Newcastle itself is now owned by PIF, PCP Capital Partners, and BR Sports and Media. No fans are involved in the ownership of the club, and there is no mandate within the top level of English football to ensure that fans have some say in who runs their club. And much like Leeds and Holbrook, Monty isn't just frustrated with the game of the extreme wealth that top-tier English football has become. He's also finding it impossible to ignore the way the club is now tethering to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and its crown prince. I want Newcastle United to become something to be proud of again, he said, but not at the cost of sport to watch. The adoration pouring out for the takeover right now could so quickly turn to worship for Mohammed bin Salman himself, and we all know what he stands accused of and what sort of oppression the Saudi Arabian people are facing. While Monty, like many other megapies, was critical of Ashley and his time as Newcastle owner, he is fearful of the moral vacuum that comes with this overtake. It's as if we've leaped out of the flying fan and straight into the fire. The club and its new owners can talk all they like about improving the women's team. For example, with this new injection of money which can bring new training facilities and resources. But there's been no mention at all about how women are treated in Saudi Arabia. It's being brushed under the carpet. Monty says that any promise from the club to continue to support LGBTQ plus rights will just feel like lip service, and similarly to Holbrook, he wonders what it means, if anything at all, for Newcastle's players to wear rainbow-colored laces when there is now such a cozy relationship between the club and the regime that persecuted LGBTQ plus people. And while the takeover is seen by many as the attempt by Mohammed bin Salman and Saudi Arabia to recalibrate their global image, Monty thinks that the optics of the acquisition itself are having a rather undesired effect on Newcastle. The club is currently facing criticism from the variety of angles, including other Premier League clubs, who have held emergency meetings to question how the overtake are allowed it to happen so quickly, and their fans, LGBTQ plus activist groups, aforementioned human rights organizations, and across the media landscape. Nobody comes out of this situation looking good, Monty concluded, especially not Newcastle. Remembering of things past. If there's anyone that can identify with the conflict and the bewilderment Newcastle fans are feeling right now, it's Manchester City fans. They've already lived through the impact of a huge takeover by the staggering, staggeringly wealthy investment group, which itself also has close ties to the sovereignty of the nation state with the questionable record on human rights. Kate Roper has watched as the citizens have usurped usurped the crown of the North from Big Brother Manchester United, and as much as she has enjoyed the meteoric rise of the club, that was only dismissed as the noisy neighbour of United by Sir Alex Ferguson. She warns the Newcastle fans of the pitfalls that come with success, bankrolled by the Royal with almost unlimited resources at hand. Despite all the trophies and beyond the height we've scaled, I think there is a nostalgia for the past for many City fans, Roper told CNN Sport. Lots of fans remember what it was like before we were taken over by Shakir Mansour, when we had to fight just to stay up and avoid the relegation again. And I think they still cling to the days when no one knew what the result of the next match was going to be, and when winning a derby over United was the shock outcome that would lead to delirium. We cherish those days. Roper says that although she still relished in City's reemergence as one of the most successful clubs in the world, she worries that the part of its soul has been lost to global idealization and commercialization, something which she feels Newcastle fans should be wary of as they enter into this strange new era. One of the reasons that I love City so much is because it's very local club that takes great pride in coming from Marin Road, she said. But now that there's so much focus on its international image and what kinds of global markets the club can break into, I do wonder if all the money that City has going to the part of the Manchester that actually needs it beyond the club to the local community, to food banks and the most side where the stadium at Main Road used to lie. City has previously told CNN that each investment has been a much about regenerating East Manchester as it has been about building an elite football team that regularly challenges for the sport's major trophies. Roper went on to say that as long as City continues to be injected with immeasurable wealth, she is worried that each connection with the supporters that championed the club as an underdog for many years could begin to wither away as some fans begin to see through the shine of trophies. The sheer amount of money that the club has, to the point that at any time we could sub one star players during a match, where many other clubs can't afford to do that, does often feel wrong. She said to CNN. Only time will tell if the PIF's the acquisition will actually lead Newcastle into a new world defined by success, trophies, and global worship. But one thing is certain: there are some poker clubs that feels this takeover is just another example of modern football's obsession of wealth and its disregard for anything else, including concerns over human rights, the feelings of LGBTQ plus fans, and the duty a club has to its community. For Newcastle United ESAP, this is the beginning of a strange and unpredictable journey that may lead to that it height it couldn't have dreamed of. For the fans that don't want the megafish to become a toy for the Saudi state to play with, it's a beginning of the complicated relationship with the very club they hold so dear to their heart.